Pawn shop owners, what was the most illegal thing a customer had brought to your shop?
Uncle owns one in Inglewood, Chicago. Dude brought a Glock while wearing a bloody shirt. He told him to get out, then called the cops. I used to work in a pawn shop that was just for tools. This guy brought in these really nice top-of-the-line wrenches to sell. He said business was booming and I asked what he did and he said, "You really want to know?" in a scared kind of way. I was like, "Yeah, I'm just making small talk." He said he was a drug dealer. So I said I don't want the wrenches. They were probably stolen. This just reminded me of my friend who pawned the DSLR camera I let him borrow for a school project. I asked for it back a good amount of times and not once did he tell me what he did. I had to hear it from someone else and then he claimed that I gave it to him. You always gotta look out for the people bringing in a shit ton of brand spanking new tools or electronics. Over time you learn to read people based on their appearance, behavior, and personal information. An experienced pawnbroker can almost always immediately sleuth out whether they're stolen or not. In these cases, they usually are. I've never had someone intentionally bring in illicit items, but it's important to check pockets and compartments on cases and similar things. It's not unheard of for some eclectic customer to forget about a little baggie of weed they'd stashed. One guy paid off his loan with cash, and there was a thin layer of white residue coating it. First time I'd seen that one. Not illegal, but toward the beginning of the coronavirus outbreak, some wisecrack nutcase did try to sell us disinfectant. Funny but also annoying. Literally had a customer come in and say, "Hi, I've just stolen this phone off my sister, how much will you give me for it?" Also had a customer bring in 5 MacBooks at the same time, with a certain logo on it which gave me the impression they were stolen. Told him to leave them with me for testing and called the police. Had another customer bring in a gun and a crossbow. That was weird. I'm in the UK, this is not a normal thing. I used to work at a paw store. A shady guy brought in a tiger skull. I don't remember if it was illegal or not, but the owner was yelling at him. He kept coming back brining animal skin and skulls. I think the police drug busted his house. From what the owner told me, a TV was stolen from my dad's office and sold to a pawn shop in America, La Crosse, Y. This had been happening with yard decorations and our neighbors told us what pawn shop to look at. Sure enough, it showed up and at first the manager would not provide any info or even care that we thought it was stolen. My dad then offered to buy it and requested that the TV be plugged in to check for defects. It worked just fine and my dad said he will take it, but then pulled the remote out his pocket that the thief didn't take and turned the TV off, proving it was his. The manager then had to call and report this. Turns out accepting a TV without a remote is a red flag that he missed in this case. The manager quit, but the general belief was he knew most of the stuff he was selling was stolen, but he fudged paperwork to keep the thief's identity a secret. My dad put him in his place and humiliated him in the most simple way for being a lying fuck. So I worked at a pawn shop several years ago. A dude brought in a box of random shit. One of the dumb workers we had bought said "box of shit." We found the lock with part of the door in the box when we started to price it out. It was clearly the door and lock you kicked in to steal said shit. I fucking cried laughing for the entire day over that. Not a pawn shop owner, but I was on the receiving end of someone selling my stolen stuff at one. We had our house burgled, in UK. Me and my dad went to some pawn shops to give them a list of everything taken. Whilst we were in there, someone comes up to counter and starts unloading a bunch of stuff they want to pawn. It was our stuff. We got in a major incident inside the shop. The asshole manager of cash converters was saying it's nothing to do with me, take it all outside the shop. Sorry buddy, but when you're happy to buy a camera full of someone else's family photos, a laptop, and a bunch of other electronics from 2 junkies who look like they're homeless, no teeth, obvious signs of drug abuse, etc., then it's absolutely, 100% your problem to deal with. Police called, junkies charged with handling stolen goods. I got charged with assault. That was later dropped. Nobody charged with the actual burglary, so no real punishments for anyone involved. Okay, I'm not a pawn shop owner, but I know a few. One thing I've seen was a guy who brought in smoke grenades and M249 saw belts that he had stolen from our local military drill center. Another was a guy at a local gun store who brought in a pistol that had an illegal oil filter suppressor on it. They told the guy, "Get the fuck out and go destroy that thing." My dad's friend works at a pawn shop in a shitty area and has had some crazy shit come in. Mostly stolen guns and tools, but the story he likes to tell is when a homeless guy tried to sell a sawed-off shotgun covered in tape. They called the cops and a guy tells him he found it in the park. A friend who works at a pawn shop has had to remind me multiple times that he legally cannot purchase my dried capybara semen. I was talking to a guy, he went to sell his shotgun, and the person at the counter didn't know how to measure barrel length, so thinking it was an illegal short-barreled shotgun, she tried to call the cops on him. Former employee, the most illegal thing brought to my shop was an 8-ball Coke. He wasn't selling it but wanted to buy a digital scale and brought it to test the scales we had. Aside from that, a chainsaw. Although not illegal itself, they used it to threaten me, which was pretty illegal. Pawn shops in a big metro get pretty crazy. Really nice old looking farmer man walks in with a shotgun with a barrel way too short. Long story short, boss bought it off of him and immediately called the local PD to tell them. Cop asked if you could just remove the barrel and dispose of it as it was too much paperwork and hassle to come down and get it. Local PD are a fucking joke. I had the street rat named Tintin bring in a purse with a fresh blood stain on it. Employee here, not an owner. But I don't know if it's necessarily illegal, but one time a guy brought me a handful of human teeth with bloody roots and gold filings. He wanted me to extract the gold. I said no thanks bro. The guy came in with a bong that still had drugs in it and the guy was stoned AF. Worked at a gun shop and a shady looking guy brought in a few pairs of night vision goggles, like high-end military grade PVS 14 night vision goggles. Asked him why he was selling them. Oh, I just don't need them anymore. Cool man, do you mind if I call the company real quick and run the numbers? Sometimes this stuff is stolen property. And as soon as I said that, he jumped across the counter, grabbed the goggles and bolted for the door. Friend of mine owns a shop. One day a woman walks in and asks if there was a female employee she could talk to. No problem, it's a family shop and his 18-year-old daughter comes out to help her. She asks to go out to her car where she opens the trunk. Whole thing is packed with sex toys, bondage shit, outfits and a big box of dildos. Woman says her sister who recently passed away sold this stuff at parties and she had no idea what to do with it. I used to work in an electronics/DVD/games secondhand store. We used to get people in all the time selling what were blatantly mass-run bootlegs, hundreds of copies of the same DVD which under even rudimentary inspection did not come off a proper print run. Hell, if you popped one in a player it usually just cut right into the movie a few seconds in or some shit, and people who had just stolen shit from a first-hand retailer nearby and were busy tearing the packaging off in the damn queue for the registers. Not a pawn shop worker or anything, but my friend bought a push bike from a pawn shop which needed a bit of work, which we did and subsequently found that it had previously been stolen, most likely, serial numbers removed etc. A few weeks later he'd been done some shopping and it had been pinched from outside the shops on the same street where he bought it. You'll never guess where it showed up. One of my friends in high school somehow managed to steal several laptops from cash converters. Got away with it too. That was until they tried to sell one of the laptops they stole back to cash converters the very next week, with the CC sticker and barcode still on the bottom. He was quickly caught and they found his whole stash and he did 100 hours community service. Employee, not an owner. Not really illegal in itself but probably the most contact with law enforcement I've had. I live in the UK where we have to put the serial numbers of any technology through a police check before paying the customer. We put it in and it flagged as wanted by the police. Within 10 minutes the police were there and asking us to hand the phone over and to talk to the guy. We hadn't even gotten through to them yet on the phone. From what I understand, the guy has bought it online a few months back. Unfortunately for him, the phone was wanted in connection to a murder. The look on that poor guy's face. Employee, not owner. Get odd stuff every now and then. The most recent thing was a hand crossbow, which are illegal in Canada. Also had various drug paraphernalia, used crack pipes, coke straws, prescription pills, etc. Had a customer pawn a laptop once then come back in a little while later asking if they could get the weed out of their bag. Weed was legal here at this time, but still funny. Not illegal in Canada, but we did not see gold come through too. Not a pawn shop, nor am I affiliated in any way, but this made the newspaper. Someone bought a jacket at a thrift store for their kid and found an 8-ball of cocaine in the pocket. Later that week, someone bought a toy for their kids from Zellers, which as it turns out had previously been returned, and there was an ounce of cannabis in the box. An expensive diving helmet stolen 5 years prior to him bringing it in. Not an owner, but my friend who works at a pawn shop told me this. One day someone came in with a toxic waste container. Like a aluminium, real deal nuclear waste container. They had to call Homeland Security,